Coming up in a little over 30 minutes' time, it'll be the France 24 debate and Emmanuel Macron's France First gamble, you could call it, putting manufacturing, bringing it home to this country front and center in his recovery plan, his 100 billion euro recovery plan. For more, we turn to business editor Kate Moody.
Hi, Francois. Number one priority, as we heard from Jean Castex, as we've heard from Emmanuel Macron's government since the beginning of this crisis, really is protecting jobs. Because despite that huge state-sponsored furlough program that we've seen rolled out over the last few months, some 500,000 people have lost their jobs in the first 6 months of 2020. We did see the plan help to prevent wider spread layoffs, but still 500,000 people losing their jobs. Economists warning that as government support is scaled back, there could be a further uptick in job cuts and bankruptcies. The latest forecasts were for 1 million more people out of work overall in 2020. Now, to that end, Prime Minister Jean Castex is funneling over 7.5 billion euros to extend that paid leave or furlough program for businesses and companies that need it. Almost 7 billion euros is going to help get young people into the workforce. Take a listen.
Notre priorité absolue, c'est l'emploi. Avec ce plan, nous soutenons dès aujourd'hui l'emploi de ces premières victimes de la crise, les jeunes et les demandeurs d'emploi. Nous investissons donc massivement dans la formation pour les métiers et les filières de demain, la transition écologique, l'industrie innovante, le numérique par exemple.
Jean Castex speaking earlier there. Well, that 100 billion euro sum is divided into three basic sectors, about 34 billion to help support businesses, including a cut in production tax. So that's things like the property tax on factories, 36 billion euros for jobs, health and social programs, and around 30 billion euros of investment in green industry and green transition, energy transition. Now, Prime Minister Castex said that the focus was on green investment. That's at the heart of his overall strategy. Although critics say that state aid companies should require more concrete commitments to reducing their own pollution. The government insists, though, it's not just about protecting the environment, it's about boosting the economy, protecting businesses, and helping to create jobs. Fraser Jackson reports.
When Jean L'Aigle built this house in the 80s, energy conservation wasn't on his list of priorities. But now, with the French government spending billions of euros on an ecological overhaul, he's decided to get a piece of the action and install some insulation.
J'ai des revenus très bas, donc je vais recevoir le maximum de la prime Rénov', c'est-à-dire 18 000 euros.
Jean is one of a vast number of people who can benefit from the state's latest initiative to cut greenhouse gases. Around 5 million homes in France are classed as energy guzzlers, about 17% of all residences. 7 billion euros have now been pledged to make buildings more green. And that's just a fraction of the 30 billion announced in Emmanuel Macron's latest scheme to stimulate the economy.
En fait, ce volet, il soutient la transformation écologique de tous les secteurs qui sont fortement émetteurs de gaz à effet de serre ou le plus fortement émetteur de gaz à effet de serre. Traditionnellement, on identifie 4 secteurs qui sont les transports, les bâtiments, l'énergie et l'industrie et enfin l'agriculture.
Among the new green initiatives, 11 billion euros of the 30 are going to the transport sector, half of which will transform rural railways and freight lines. Money will also go to support public transport and the building of new bike lanes. 9 billion will be spent on decarbonising industry and helping companies clean up their act. The government is hoping to reduce agriculture's reliance on pesticides and increase the amount of locally grown produce. Help will also be given to protect forests from the effects of climate change. The money will be spent over the coming years before the next presidential election in 2022.
Let's check in on the day's trading action. Now, losses for the major European indices there as manufacturing and economic activity across the Eurozone showed signs of slowing down in August. The CAC 40 fared a bit better than the DAX and FTSE 100, down about 0.4 percentage point at the closing bell. Shares of pharmaceutical giants GlaxoSmithKline and Sanofi both dropped slightly despite their announcement that they were going to begin human tests of a possible coronavirus vaccine. Wall Street has also sharply reversed course after a rally that had brought stocks to new record highs earlier this week. The tech sector especially hard hit there. Apple shares down around 5%, Facebook, Amazon, Google down around 4%. The Dow Jones is down well over 500 points this hour. It had lost as much as 800 earlier in the day. Now, the number of Americans seeking unemployment benefits for the first time fell to its lowest level since the start of the pandemic last week. 881,000 people filed claims. That's down from a peak of nearly 7 million in a single week back in March. The number of continuing claims also fell fairly sharply to around 13 million. Now, the number of weekly claims does remain significantly higher, even than the worst week of the financial crisis a decade ago. Economists said also that the Labor Department had changed the way it counts claims, which could have artificially deflated last week's figures. There are other warning signs for the U.S. labor market as well. Data on Wednesday showed the private sector had added just 428,000 jobs in August. That's half of what had been expected. Airlines are now among the employers that have warned that they could cut tens of thousands more jobs in the coming weeks. On Friday, the government's expected to confirm that the overall unemployment rate has, though, fallen slightly below 10%. Meanwhile, in the UK, Amazon said it plans to create a further 7,000 permanent jobs before the end of the year. That takes its total for 2020 to over 10,000 new jobs in the UK. The e-commerce giant is also taking on about 20,000 additional staff in temporary jobs during the holiday season. Most of those positions will be in warehouses and sorting and delivery stations. While traditional retailers have struggled during the pandemic, Amazon has seen a huge jump in demand. Online orders now account for 28% of overall spending in the UK. Of course, Francois, it's important to remember it's not all good news for Amazon. The company has faced a lot of claims from unions and workers that they're not taking the health and safety of their employees seriously enough during the pandemic.
All right, and how those tech giants have done roaring trade. One of the factors we'll be talking about in the debate. Many thanks for that, Kate Moody.